Welcome back to the Hearties Hotline. I am Hooked Hardy, Cami Clements, and you all know my beautiful co-host, Sarah Nitch. Okay, so Sarah, we have a couple of nominations for a name for you. So
okay,
I want to just...
This is the first time I'm hearing them. You have not told me this the air.
For all of our listeners, this is the first time, okay?
So my reactions will be genuine.
Okay, some suggestions are the happy-go-lucky Hardy, the hot take Hardy. I like that one. You got a lot of hot takes.
Okay.
The hoping Hardy. I would like to, that puts me in mind of saying the hopping Hardy, but I don't know if I like that one. That just came off the top of my head. The observant Hardy and the sharp-eyed Hardy. Now, you know what we could do? We, instead of sharp-eyed, we could call you the hawk-eyed Hardy, because you are very sharp with those eyes of yours and you notice a lot of things. So
I am quite detail oriented.
Indeed, which is why I think that, now that's just my opinion. I think the hawk-eyed Hardy would suit you very well, but we'll wait and see what else people have in mind.
Yeah, let's see if we get any other suggestions and play with that, and let's hear what people have to say about those suggestions, and we'll figure this out pretty soon.
So everybody send those in. Okay, we are discussing today When Calls the Heart, Season 2, Episode 6, Awakenings and Revelations. And there are several revelations in this one tiny little episode, aren't there?
Right. So when I was watching it, it kept even 15 minutes into the show, like a new plot line would start, and I'd be like,
I know,
there's more.
There can't be more.
Oh, one episode. This is one episode.
It's crazy.
It was really jam-packed.
Okay, so the first revelation I want to talk about is everything having to do with Bill. Let's talk about Bill for a second. Because I am, at this point when I was watching it for the first time, I still was on the fence. You know, I still wasn't sure if I could trust him.
Well, and this is not the final revelation on Bill's story arc for the season. But definitely you finally get insight into at least part of what's going on.
Part. So when he goes into the cafe to see Abigail.
Yes.
Thoughtful gesture, very wrong time. Yeah.
But I'm not sure how he could have known what a good time would be, and I don't know if there would have been a good time.
No, there wouldn't have been a good time. That's why
you just have to get over that awkward hump of the first contact when he's back in town.
Right. Well, and he had the right idea. He had the right idea that he didn't want other people telling Abigail that he had arrived into town. He wanted to,
and I like that he told her that reason.
Yeah. He had, there is a method behind his madness.
And he doesn't know it's madness in his, he's
not yet
kind of oblivious to that.
Yeah. And when Clara comes down the stairs, he does a really good job of putting on the happy face, but then it's almost like he's sticking a pin inside Abigail's side or something. She's wonderful, isn't she? I'm like, oh, bad move, buddy, bad move. Just don't compliment a lady when she's really ticked off on you.
I mean, yes and no, because there's also that he's trying to show that he still cares, and that no matter what's happening between them, he still believes she's a great person. Like he doesn't have any ill will towards her.
Yeah, but the
for
problem
her
is
being mad at him.
he is full of ill will towards him. So I don't know if that would have been the best idea. But yeah. Okay. It's just a hard situation all the way around. Yes. And Jack comes up to him in the saloon. Hey, I thought that was your horse out there trying to have the relationship with Bill that he's used to.
Well, and exactly, it just kind of to me mirrored that interaction in Hamilton with Bill and Abigail, where he arrived thinking that things were the same as they had always been between them, and she had this new approach, and it was kind of the same thing as Jack's approaching Bill and like, hey, there's my buddy, and Bill's just acting totally different. He's like, what is going on?
You got to feel really sorry for Jack at this point, because this is the man that he says to Bill, you were my mentor. Since when have you never been able to trust me? But turn it around. He's his mentor. He's always trusted him. He's probably put his life into his hands several times. And now he's getting this really terrible vibe. What does he say? I'm getting the distinct impression you have some issue with me. And Bill says, I really don't, Jack, but if you keep badgering me, I will.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Yeah. He shut him down.
Shut him down.
Which I think goes to show you their connection, because Bill knew Jack wouldn't let it go unless he was firm and just walked away. So he knew he had to do it that way to keep that cover.
Yeah, but
that he is using right now.
Yeah, but it's funny that he's trying to keep the cover, but in the saloon, he's still trying to get information out of Jack for personal reasons,
right?
Concerning Abigail. And he says, oh, I know the whole town probably knows about Nora right now. I'm like, okay, dude, we're getting a little bit of Jekyll and Hyde here. Which persona are you going to put on?
Well, I think he's only putting on the tough persona when he feels like Jack is pushing for information.
Yeah.
So it's like he wants to still be friends with him. He wants to still have him trust him. And he's hoping he can do so without Jack interfering in the investigation that he's working on.
Not going to happen because Jack's incredibly good at his
He's
job.
Jack.
He's Jack.
He learned a lot of this Mountie business from Bill, which is the problem, is they both have that very, very, they're very driven.
I really love how the first shot of the entire episode is Bill riding into town. It sets the mood. It sets the tone for the episode. And even though there are B plots, you know that this episode is going to be about what's going on with Bill right now. And I really liked how they set that all up with just a couple of seconds of him riding a horse.
Right. Because most of the other subplots are just kind of this one episode subplot.
Yeah.
Whereas this has been something that's been building throughout the season of what's happening with Bill. And so that's just, to me, especially with the title of the episode, Awakenings from Revelations, definitely a big reason for that title, because you're finally kind of getting some of that information that you've been maybe wondering if you want to know the answer.
Okay, so Sarah, question.
Yeah.
When Bill takes off after the two counterfeiters and Jack is standing there with Lee and he sees it and he says, excuse me, Lee says, of course, and Jack goes after them. Obviously, good idea because he saves Bill's life. Yes, but I'm talking about the decision he made right there to follow after him. Good idea, bad idea. What's your thought?
Well, I mean, good idea. Like, you're a Mountie. You've just seen somebody that's been acting very suspicious, follow two very suspicious people out of town, looking concerned, and he's your friend. So like, if you don't follow and find out what's going on, can you live with yourself if something happens?
I'm in complete agreement. I just wanted to see what you thought.
I mean, to me, I don't see any reason any Mountie wouldn't have followed that.
I don't think so either. I mean,
it was suspicious.
Well, yeah, and yes,
and there's not a lot else going on in towns that you are busy with.
And yes, Bill is a Mountie, but let's face it, there's even such a thing as backup, even in 1910.
Exactly. Exactly.
And I think
you don't just let somebody else deal with it.
No, especially when the odds are not good.
Yeah, 2 people against 1.
Yeah. I mean, it all is summed up in Jack's words. If I hadn't rode in, you'd be a dead man. And I think not only is Bill upset about his pride being hurt, that he did get bested by these 2 characters, but yes, he's upset that the cover is blown, but I think he's more upset about the pride. And when Jack says that, if I hadn't rode in, you'd be a dead man. I think that's very grumbling acknowledgement.
Agreed. So do they ever say, was he shot in the arm? What?
Yes.
Because at first you're like, wow, that looks like he just got shot like in the chest or something. From the angle, it looks that way. And then he's just moving around. And I was like, wait, was he shot at all? And then he's got his arm in a sling. I was like, oh, what happened?
You didn't see him holding his arm?
I didn't notice that part. No.
Okay, yeah. It's if you
look, kind of like hunched over. So I was like, well, he's acting like he's hurt, but then he's not acting like he's hurt in another angle.
If you look at the fight really carefully, they're tussling with the gun, and then it moves to Bill's chest, and then it moves over slightly, and then pow. So it does get moved over. He does get shot in the arm. So
now at this point, there's no medical personnel in the town.
Nope.
Not quite.
My best guess is Jack, with his first aid knowledge, dug that bullet out if it didn't go all the way through and put it in a very hasty sling.
That actually does make the most sense.
Yeah, I mean, he was the medical personnel for a while there.
Well, and he had given himself stitches before, we learned when he was talking in season 1. So
about the bear.
Yep.
So he could do it. And I mean, Abigail is not willing to help him at this point.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Abigail would have done it, but not now.
But there are another number of women, and I'm not just talking about for swooning reasons. There are a number of women who probably have basic first aid knowledge. Yeah. Who would have been willing to help. I mean, in a mining town, you're going to have your fair share of accidents. You've got to know some basic knowledge, even if it's not the best knowledge. You've got to have some basic knowledge.
Yeah. Agreed.
So the episode ends with Bill still saying that he was undercover and he didn't tell Jack because that would have defeated the purpose. He does apologize to Jack for being out of sorts. And of course, he has to do this right in front of Elizabeth. We'll get to that in a minute.
which I want to say, though, from Bill's perspective.
Yes, let's take it from Bill's perspective.
I think that shows his respect for Jack and Elizabeth, that
It
he
does.
would have that conversation in front of her, and that he knows that they're important to each other.
Mm-hmm.
And he wants both of them to hear that he's sorry and all of that. Like, I kind of feel like he chose that moment on purpose, and he felt like that was a good idea to apologize, kind of, not to
Which
Elizabeth,
is
but
so masculine and mounty of him.
he's very, very respectful of people's relationships. Like,
Yes.
I've over the years, I've always felt like, wow, it's really fun coming from kind of that older man who's not in a relationship to just kind of have that really nice fatherly attitude about it, and very respectful attitude about it. You could get this cranky old guy who's like, he doesn't have anybody to spend time with, so why would I care if you do, or if you have a good relationship?
He does get cranky every once in a while,
yeah. But he's usually like trying to give them advice on how to solve their relationship problems, or something along those lines, versus just being like, come hang out with the guys.
Well, and I think that the other, and once again, we're taking this from Bill's point of view. Not only does he know how important Elizabeth and Jack are to each other, but I think that he saw this as an opportunity to talk Jack up to Elizabeth. He's a hero. He saved my life. He's doing it a lot more toned down, but he's saying, well, I guess you could say he saved my life. Look at the guy you got here. Isn't he great?
Right? He's trying to do him a favor. Little does he know is digging a hole deeper. He tried. But we as viewers, as first-time viewers, we still don't know what is going on here. We still don't know which Bill we can trust. Do we trust the undercover character that he's playing, or do we trust the Bill that we've kind of come to know, the one that fell in love with Abigail? Which one do we go with, and can we like this guy again yet? All of those questions. Lots of questions.
All right. Let's talk about Clara. Okay. I have to say this is reflecting nothing on future characters in future seasons.
Right.
But I absolutely love Luke McCoy.
He was such a cute character. It would have really been nice, regardless of what happened with Clara, it would have been nice to see that character develop a little bit. Because
it doesn't have to turn into a full-fledged relationship, but he was so cute. And then we don't see him again after this episode, and that is very, very sad to me. He was totally respectable and respectful. He was perfectly sincere. He was adorable. You can't get a much better combination. And he was going to start a job at the Mercantile. Come on.
Yeah. Yeah, in what I will say about that is I'm really glad that they didn't have him be a long-term serious relationship for Clara, because I think that was really helpful to have this like situation where she has to come to terms with her feelings of being a widow and moving on, and just to have her go through all of that without it being serious, and just having her deal with it internally and with Abigail, and kind of that familial.
You don't want the first time to be the time.
Well, it could have been, but I found it more powerful that it just like it was a conduit for her to get through those feelings and for her to have those discussions with Abigail that were very necessary without having to have the big romantic topic happening right now, and just letting her kind of work
right
through
now.
Exactly. And you could have revisited it, but in terms of this storyline, what did you like the best?
Okay, so this is dealing with Elizabeth, but I'm going to go ahead and say it because it involves Clara. I cannot get over the fact that 1 second Elizabeth is talking about all of these relationship issues that she is having with Charles and Jack, and she's never been so embarrassed in her life. And then Clara comes in and, well, of course you're gonna go. She instantly goes into matchmaker mode. And she knows all the answers. She has everything ready. She has it all figured out. And life is going to move on perfectly smoothly with her involvement. I'm like, do we not see the irony here? Can you put
she doesn't.
I know she doesn't. I know she doesn't. But I'm just like, can you
almost
put a little bit of that relationship wisdom into your own life? You know,
it almost felt like that could have been on purpose with the writing. It is
could
like
have been. I would not be surprised.
Having her kind of, she knows some of the answers, but she's kind of like in denial about it and how it applies to her.
It would not surprise me if that was done on purpose, but it just, I could not get over it. It's just,
there's a couple things that jumped out for me. One was at the beginning, they're talking about how great it would be if Clara could open up a dress shop. And I'm like, man, her poor character has jumped between jobs and career aspirations and everything, like more than any other character. But then I started thinking about it. And I was like, this is very typical of young girls to be like, oh, this is what I want to do. And then, oh yeah, no, that's not, oh, I don't want to do that. Let's try a different path. And so it's kind of nice that they did it with one character. Like it isn't overdone. There aren't a whole bunch of people doing that, but it added some realism, I think, for me. At first I was like, why don't they just pick something? It's like, oh, well, in real life, sometimes somebody can't decide.
It's good to see some consistency that sewing and making dresses was a dream of hers even back in season 2. And we are not going to expound on that anymore right now. What's another thing that jumps out at you about Clara's situation in all of this? I'm very curious.
Well, I think we have to bring up Abigail's discussion with Frank, because that's one of the first one-on-one conversations they've had.
Yeah, it's the first deep sit-down conversation they've had. The only other one that they've had is on the first day of school when she complimented him on the speech to open the school year. So
the thing that struck me in that conversation, and I was curious what you thought about it.
Okay.
He was not looking at her. He was busy, and he was like polishing or sanding the pulpit down. And I found it odd. And I don't know if it was like, I mean, if they had to have done it for a reason. I mean, they don't just do that.
Yeah.
Like something in the script would have told him to be doing that during the conversation, or he would have said, hey, I think this would be a good idea if I do this during the conversation. Like they don't just do it. So it struck me because there's just in interpersonal communication, you're always being taught, like, you know, make eye contact with people who are talking to you, show interest in what they're saying. And that's always been something that, like, when I've been a supervisor in my job, you know, they're like, if somebody comes in and tells you they have a problem, like, stop what you're doing and turn and face them and listen, and give them your undivided attention, at least for a little while, or explain, I'm in the middle of this and I can either listen to you right now while I do this, or we can set a time to talk later. So that's just like something I've been trained to do. So it's ingrained in my personality. And granted, I'm not always great at doing that in my personal life. If I'm in the middle of something, it's a lot harder to remember to do it at home.
Phone call after phone call after phone call. You're always busy.
I know. I never talk to you when you call.
We always multitask during our phone calls.
It's even something I'm trying to improve. If one of my kids comes up and wants to talk to me while I'm washing dishes, like I try to gauge, like, is this a serious conversation, or are they just asking where something is, and I can direct them to it while I'm finishing my task. But if they have something serious going on and really need to talk, like, I want to be able to show them that I'm going to pay more attention. So I was just a little curious why they might have chosen to set the scene that way.
Well, he does come and sit down and look her straight in the eye. So I'm gonna get into actor mode again. So you asked for this.
That's why I'm asking you what your opinion is.
A lot of times they ask you, when you're doing a scene, to have a moment before. What are you doing the moment before the scene starts? And that is what makes a scene look more natural when it starts as we see it. So my thought is, in their moment before, he's cleaning the pulpit, she comes in and sits down. And so he's just finishing up, and then he comes and sits down. Now, I have two other theories that are a little less practical. Number one, he's incredibly attracted to her, and so he feels that he needs to keep his hands busy
I like this theory.
He needs to keep his hands busy to have something to do, so he's not just focusing on her, because it'll make him crazy. And number two, he doesn't know her that well yet.
Mm-hmm.
So probably sitting down, even as a preacher, sitting 2 inches away from somebody might make her feel uncomfortable. And having such a close conversation. Mm-hmm. And from what he knows, and see, he probably knows her a lot better than we think, because there's been off-screen time. So he's probably eaten at the cafe. He sees her bustling all over the place, cooking, serving, cleaning. So he probably thinks that as a bustling woman, it makes her feel better if he finishes his work. And
he bustles a little bit.
And he we're going into Pride and Prejudice theory now.
Bustle and Frank.
That the figure is best observed from far away. But no, I think that she would feel better if he didn't stop his work. Because if he had just dropped the cloth and sat down, she would probably say, "Oh, no, please finish what you were doing. I'll just talk." So that could have also been another moment before. She comes in and sits down, he sits down, and then she says, "Oh, no, please finish. It's not that important." And he says, "Okay." And he gets up and finishes. And then as soon as he's done, he comes and sits next to her. So
no, that makes a lot more sense.
You just made me do a lot of scene analogy.
that was great.
Oh,
that was great. You. I definitely like the second theory.
That he's so crazy about it.
Keep the hands busy.
Otherwise, he might just take her in his arms and kiss her.
Just give away your feelings. I love it.
I do like what he says, though. There are two things you cannot have any influence over: young love and mules. That sounds like such a frontier man preacher kind of answer. He's offering sound advice, but it's very practical advice. So.
Yes. And I was going to bounce off of what you said too. They obviously know each other a little bit better because he's aware of her son. He's aware of a lot of the details, and not just that Clara was her son's widow. I mean, he seems to have more details, like there've been some conversations about it, which helps understand why they would have this conversation in the first place.
I am wondering how he is so insightful. I mean, this is his first congregation, and so
nobody knows that, right? We don't know that yet.
Oh, that's right. Whoops. Guilty knowledge right here.
No spoilers here.
No spoilers. Okay, one or two. But he's an unmarried man. We know nothing about his family background. Was he close to his mother? Did he have any sisters? Did he have any girlfriends growing up? We don't know any of that. But he has the insight to say that Clara doesn't want to hurt Abigail's feelings. And that's why she said no to Luke. I thought, that's incredibly insightful. And yes, he's a man of God, so he's going to be more in tune to those kinds of soul matters, but that's incredibly insightful for a man.
He also may have observed Clara some.
That's another thought that I had.
Picked up on some of her general attitudes.
Yeah, all of that off-screen time. Yes, absolutely. So,
and then the last thing I was going to mention was, when Luke comes to pick her up. I love how Abigail goes into parent mode.
But not too bad. She kept it a really nice balance. I was very
it was friendly, but it was definitely that protective parent mode.
Oh yeah. I was very proud of her because she smiled, she shook his hand, she invited him to have a seat. And then, yes, she went into parent mode and started asking him about himself, but they were respectful questions. And she didn't know him and she didn't know his family. And so, what else would somebody do if they're going to come and take your daughter out? You want to get to know them a little bit. Yeah. I remember the first time I brought a boyfriend home, my dad had threatened to be polishing his machete that he got when we lived in Nicaragua. And what did he do? He was eating a bowl of ice cream and listening very intently to everything that he had to say. I'm like, yeah, you're tough, Dad. So I was proud of Abigail that she didn't lay it on too thick, but she did just enough to make it known to Luke that there was a parent figure who cared about her. And I was also very proud of Abigail that she got on board with all of this, and when
you could tell it was very difficult for her.
Yeah. And when Elizabeth says, go ahead.
Oh, well, and partially, yes, because this is this daughter figure that she's never had, and she's trying to be protective of her while not overstepping. So, I mean, there's that aspect of her relationship with her and her not wanting to lose that connection with her. But definitely, this is your son's wife. That's hard. And he's dead. And he was dead at 18. And you never got to see them together. There's so much. I mean, she goes through so much trying to get over Noah, but they had a life together. They had all these memories. They have all these things that she can fall back on. And Peter and Clara didn't have that.
No. Which is really sad.
Sad. That went down.
But we're going to bring it back up because when Elizabeth starts offering the makeup, the dress, the jewelry. Abigail jumps right in and says she'll do her hair. And Abigail even says, I don't think there's any point in protesting. And of course, Elizabeth jumps right in with, no, there's not. Once again, they're so confident in somebody else's love life, but their own is a mess. Mm-hmm. Oh dear. But I was glad. I was glad that Clara did this. She needed this.
Yes.
She
and
needed
to see another side of her. That, you know, this was the first time really seeing a more personal side of her.
Right. And we got to see her flirt a little bit. We got to see her get flustered, and we got to see her make someone flustered, which is fun. And I loved it when she bumped into him the second time and she pretty much gets him to ask her again, you know, and just
it was very sweet. They're very sweet.
He's so cute about it. Would you allow me to escort you to the ice cream social? And then, well, if it's all right, I'll come calling for you tomorrow about 4. I'm like, come on, even you with all of your theories about how great this was, that she had a one-time date with someone who wasn't a future tense, even you have to say that this is very sad, that it's the only time we see this.
Yes, it was very sad.
Oh, good. Got her to admit. Okay, let's go to Lucy and Ricky of Hope Valley. Well, I mean, if there is a scene that holds up to it,
yes,
I think it's the scenes that are here.
Yes.
Like, Louise Grant gives a stunning performance as Princess Marie in The Pride of Jennico. I cannot believe it. Why can't I believe that? Poor Lee. He knows absolutely nothing about the theater world.
Right.
Oh gosh.
What I love about this scene is that she literally just like storms into his office.
As if she has a right to. Apparently there's a certain comfort level that, you know, I mean, even though they haven't officially declared themselves per se, I think that, well, you know, when you ask a girl out in front of the entire town, there's a certain rapport, you know. So I think there's a general consensus that they are at the very least in the courting stage.
Oh, so, yeah, no, totally. But
yeah.
For just her general demeanor is so hilarious that she just goes where she needs to go. And
yeah. And
which actually I wanted to say, because then later when she comes and officially is kind of inviting him out, she gives him notice. And this actually surprised me.
Yeah.
She's like, tomorrow night. And I'm like, oh, you're not just there to take him right now.
I think after all the trouble that she's going to, she wants to make sure that he's available. Which brings us to Hickam! We love Hickam! Ben, we love you! This is our first viewing of Hickam because we saw him as an unnamed shopkeeper working in the mercantile in season 1, but he has a name now. He has a personality, which is a little puppy dog when it comes to Rosemary.
It's such a great dynamic because, like, I remember when I very first saw this, and you know, you have really no idea who Hickam is or is going to be on the show. And like that initial scene when Lee and Jack walk out and see Rosemary and Hickam talking, and like at the back of your head, you're like, is are they gonna start, like, is she interested in this guy? I thought she was interested in Lee. And like,
is Lee going to think that she's interested in
right
him?
Is there going to be a jealousy thing? Like, and just like your mind starts twisting and everything. And it's kind of funny watching it now, going like, oh no.
Yeah.
And nothing against Ben or Hickam, but
no, but we know the story.
We know the story. We know who his character is, and poor Hickam would have just been steamrolled by somebody like Rosemary. That would not have been a good match.
It's so true. So Rosemary proves that she is a true actress.
This sounds like something you would do, Cammie.
I have no idea what you're talking about. Jumping at the opportunity to put on an impromptu performance. Never in a million years.
Weird. Yeah. Weird. No, you've never done that.
Never, ever.
You don't break into song when we're on the phone or anything. Never.
I mean, I've seen it said all over Facebook. If you think that it's weird for people to break into songs spontaneously during a musical, you've never been to my house.
And I believe you told me when we first became friends that I needed to be okay with that, or this would not work.
I greeted you on the phone with a song, I think.
The very first time we spoke on the phone.
The first time we talked on the phone, I answered it, and I sang to her.
For those of you that don't know, Cammie and I live in different states. We have never met in person.
One day.
We spoke online in messages and on Facebook and in texts a lot before we ever spoke on the telephone. So that is true. I think the very first time I may have heard your voice in a video or something online. Maybe. On social media. But the first time we spoke to each other was in song.
There we go. And she just laughed, bless her heart.
And I'm still here years later. It's amazing. So it was not a deal breaker for me.
Thank heavens.
In some ways, feel like Lee.
Oh dear. I know you're not comparing me to this Rosemary.
There are times when I have to just nod. Okay. Let you have your moment.
I think that
I appreciate those moments as a viewer, like Lee does.
See, she's still here. All right, now, can we please go back to the real Lee and Rosemary?
Okay.
I'm not even going to point out that I'm in red and you're in black.
Well, I'm not wearing plaid.
He was in a suit at the time. So, I heard Pascal say in an interview once that she was freezing in that scene where she sings. Once again, you cannot tell that she's pregnant, and that is one of the
They've got the fan and yeah,
but that's still one of the most form-fitting dresses that she wore that season, and you can't tell. You cannot even tell.
They did a great job.
They really did. Or they just filmed everything really early. I don't know, but yeah, she said
could have been too.
She said that she was freezing. But do you love how Hickam just peeks out from behind the curtain? I built it for Miss Rosemary, Mr. Coulter. Now, you got to give Rosemary credit here because she immediately jumps. She does not throw him under the bus, which she has been known to do sometimes. And so she immediately jumps and says, "No, don't you get upset at poor Hickam, blah, blah, blah." And then Lee takes that and runs with it and says, it's all right, Hickam. I'm not angry. I know how hard it is to say no to this lady.
Absolutely. And I think that it's interesting to me that they went through all of that. And honestly, it appears that it literally was like a 10-second performance.
I know.
Like you could have cut away and then come back and pretended like it had, like she now was done playing.
That's a really good point because, yeah, I was going to say, well, it's for screen time purposes, but yeah, it was very short. And that song is legitimately that short, but if you just sing the first verse, but
like, yeah, Hickam had to build a stage for that.
There are probably going to be many repeat performances.
Okay. Oh. So a couple things about this.
Okay.
One, when Jack and Lee see Rosemary talking to Hickam, I love that, like, the first thing out of Jack's mouth, she's gonna have you building a theater. And he's like, she just asked me.
Did. And Jack says, no, she beat me to it. She beat me saying it.
Their relationship, it was just so cute seeing these two guys like, oh yeah, oh, and like
guy talk.
Comparing notes on what they thought Rosemary would be doing.
And not with a trace of malice or jealousy between them, because neither one cares that there was involvement at some point, or there is involvement.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really, like I said, best TV bromance in history as far as I'm concerned.
Pretty much. Yeah. And then the other thing I was going to bring up is when Rosemary goes to the Mercantile to look for a Victrola. and her conversation with Ned. And might I add, based on our conversation in a previous podcast, if this was happening in Brookfield, Joe would have had a Victrola. That Joe's store in Brookfield has everything.
He would have had one upstairs.
He would have his last one available upstairs. I'm just saying. I had to say that.
Okay, let's go. Let's go to the CEJ triangle. Oh boy. Okay. Things are getting interesting. They're not getting
getting interesting.
They're not getting testy. They're getting interesting.
So here's the thing.
Okay.
Jack has visited Hamilton by now.
Yes.
And we've talked about what a fish out of water he was. Let's play a little role reversal, shall we?
Let's play a game. Charles, you go to Hope Valley.
Let's see what happens when we do the opposite. And I think that was very necessary, because I think that Jack felt so out of place in Hamilton.
Yeah.
And I think when Elizabeth was in Hamilton, she acted very different because she's in this different environment, and she's kind of regressing a little bit back to her teen years and how she felt growing up. And that's the only way Charles is seeing her. And Jack is seeing her that way too, and getting a little confused. And so I think it was really amazing to see Charles come and be the fish out of water in Hope Valley, and see Elizabeth shining, really. And
see the Hope Valley Elizabeth.
Now, I still feel like she was a little different around him, which still makes sense because there's that history. But he got to see a totally different side of her, and she really stood up for herself a lot more than she had in Hamilton. And I think that was just really great for him to, and for, I mean, Jack didn't really see them together directly, like they weren't in a conversation all together.
Right.
But just to kind of have that counter perspective
Yeah.
I think was amazing.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, one thing I have to point out, the title sequence. I don't know if you've ever noticed this, but in season 2, the shots of Daniel Lissing and Aaron Krakow are, number one, when Jack is looking at Rosemary riding away, and number 2, when Elizabeth is looking at Charles.
I have not noticed that. I'm going to pay attention to that.
I did. I noticed it years ago, and I kept saying, what on earth?
They were just good pictures of them. You had to use them.
I just found that so...
But it actually makes sense. They probably did that on purpose, because that's kind of what season 2 was like, what's happening?
The jumbling.
Turmoil.
Yeah, this was the jumbled season. Okay, so I have to tell you, what's the first thing you say to the woman you love when you show up unannounced in her new hometown?
Please don't kill me.
No, instead it's working overtime. I mean, that's quite the icebreaker.
So, number one, Charles, we're teachers. We're always working. We don't stop.
Name of the game with teachers.
I am a teacher in real life here.
Yes.
So I can speak to that. You're always thinking about a lesson plan or thinking about an activity you're going to do soon.
Always.
Or I don't grade papers so much in preschool, but you're always planning something or thinking about something or remembering you need to email a parent or
something.
Yeah. So yes, Charles, he's working overtime.
I thought that was the most interesting hello. It was odd. So this is something that I thought of during this time around. I have thought of a new title for Charles Kensington III.
Uh-oh.
The King of Subtext.
That's fairly accurate.
I was about to say, tell me I'm wrong.
That is fairly accurate. He is quite good at that.
For instance, may I carry teachers' books? Now, I think, yes, he was trying to be helpful,
Clever.
But he was also trying to be annoying and poke fun at her because he was being a student, calling her teacher.
Yeah.
And then when Elizabeth plays along and says, but if you think you're going to get a better grade, oh, of course not. I'm fully prepared to work hard to earn that A. I'm like, oh,
too much. It was okay. So everybody knows me right now.
Here we go.
I love Charles, but this was my heart. This is the most difficult episode for me.
Oh, please do go on.
Because, yeah, I know. Yeah, now you want to hear me. This was because he was not in his element. I felt like Charles was really grasping at straws. He was really trying. And I mean, that is evidenced by a later conversation that we'll go into more. But throughout the whole episode, he did not have confidence. He did not know what to say. He was really grasping. And because of that, he was coming off very aloof, very, I don't want to say arrogant, that's the wrong word, but very much less respectful than he did in Hamilton. And it was very clear that he may have come here with an attempt at entering her world, where she was saying she wanted her world to be, but he was discovering that he would not
miserably
that he was not comfortable with that. Like, if there was ever any thought in his mind, like, well, maybe I moved to Hope Valley to be with her. Like, if there was ever any of that, the second he stepped off that stagecoach, that was gone. Like, this is not somewhere he will be happy. He can visit. Like he talked about, I'll be doing a lot of business with the sawmill and I'll be here from time to time. But if he had been more comfortable there, I feel like that conversation would have been different. And it could have been like, maybe I can come here more often and see you, like he never once was like, oh, well, maybe I can spend a lot of time here. And no, he was very uncomfortable. It was, like the roads are made of dirt. I was literally surprised he didn't actually say that at any point.
It was so telling when they're walking around the pond and Elizabeth is just strolling. She's strolling along and Charles is like, oh, what did I step in? It was such a beautiful picture. Not beautiful, but you know what I mean. A very, very telling shot of what the difference is between the two of them, and seeing the Hope Valley Elizabeth next to Charles. And just like what you said, when he doesn't know what to say, he repeats himself. So that's the reason this place has such a hold on you.
Yeah, or he said that in the last episode.
Or is there something more? Sweetheart, you already asked her that.
Almost verbatim.
I know. Now, I do believe he was 100% sincere when he said, you realize the liability of becoming involved with a Mountie, and I'm only thinking of your welfare. He's in love with her, and he does not want to see her get hurt. And so even though he wants her for himself, I truly do believe that he does want her to be happy, and he thinks that she will not be happy married to a Mountie. Because
100%. Yeah. And that's my biggest, I've always said that.
Yeah. And I am agreeing with you.
One time I got it.
Oh, come on. I agree with you a lot.
Not about Charles.
I do too. All right. Let's go to fishing. This conversation, remember I said that Charles is the king of subtext? And
it's
then
hilarious because have we ever even seen Jack fish?
Yes, we haven't seen him.
But yeah, he did. I know he alludes to it one time. But.
Yeah, when she's with Billy. All right. Okay, so let's just read the conversation.
Okay. Sarah, I should probably be Charles.
You probably should.
Makes a little bit of sense.
Just a little.
Beautiful spot.
It is. Excellent fishing out there.
I suppose, but it would appear you need the right bait to catch anything.
Yeah, some fish seem to like one type of bait more than another. Of
course. I suppose the question is, how does a fisherman know which is the best bait?
I find that people who have the most success fish every day, so it helps if you're a local.
And have you had much success lately?
I'd say it's been pretty good. Charles, I don't mind sharing one thing I've learned. You don't need an expensive lure. Just your ordinary, everyday live bait seems to be all you need to reel them in.
Thanks for the tip.
This conversation is the epitome of they said it, but they didn't say it.
They really have the most interesting dynamic because they know.
Oh, they know.
They both know, and they both know that the other one knows.
But, the conversation starts with Charles approaching Jack, and they shake hands.
He looked like he sought him out.
He really showed his out of the water, his fish out of the water self in Hope Valley when he said that he wants to hire a carriage to go to Buxton to take the train instead of waiting for the stage tomorrow. And Jack says, I wouldn't recommend it. It's not the safest territory for a man to cross alone. And, you know, he kind of gets flustered. I see. You know,
right. He gets that he doesn't know.
Yeah, he gets that he doesn't know. He's not necessarily afraid to show that he doesn't know. And Jack is smiling almost this entire conversation. He's got nothing against the guy at this point.
Right.
And he's being very generous, I think, with his words, saying, I lucked out. I lucked out because I'm local, you know, which I think.
Well, and why would you give him advice? Why would you tell him what to try?
I know. Like, he you know, I mean.
And I think in his mind, he's not telling him how to get Elizabeth, obviously. I think that there was some confusion over that when this first aired. I heard some chatter about people like, why is he telling him how to get Elizabeth? He's telling him how to really get any girl.
Like, it's true. Like, it can work on any girl, but we know it's talking about Elizabeth.
Yourself. You don't need to be fancy, you know, to have somebody fall in love with you. You need to be yourself.
Yeah.
And also, in addition to him kind of seeking him out, like Jack had his back turned. Jack did not see him. He called out to him.
Yeah.
So he really did want to make a connection. He wanted to, you know, have a conversation. He very easily could have avoided him.
Easily.
I mean, it's a small town. You maybe couldn't avoid him forever, but you could have avoided him then if you didn't want to have that conversation. And I think it really just goes back to show. I think Charles he's very polite. He has a lot of manners. He's very respectful. He just isn't, he's just from a different world.
Yep.
And wants to be from that different world. He did not want to be in this world. This was not his place.
So let's very quickly go over to the Mountie world that Elizabeth is trying to make herself a part of, that Jack can't let her in on. Let's go back to that conversation and take it from Jack and Elizabeth's point of view. So number one, Elizabeth did not cancel her dinner plans with Jack. Thank you, Elizabeth. You know, she did not cancel the dinner plans with Jack in order to be with Charles. She told him that she was busy. Good girl. You know.
Yes. So. She could have been more pointed and been like, I have plans with Jack.
She could have, but I think she was sparing him. You know.
I think that was
Yeah. So now here she says that she wants complete honesty regardless of the circumstances. I don't know if that's her naivete or just
I think it is.
Or is it her stubbornness speaking? Because
it's both.
He's a police officer. He can't talk about everything. There are things that you have to keep confidential, especially in a town that small where news can travel innocently at the speed of lightning.
Right.
And when it's not innocently, even faster, you know?
Right. I think that there's two ways to look at it. One is just that she was very naive and thought he could tell her anything. But another aspect of it where my mind goes is that she doesn't mean literally everything. But he doesn't have to give her the confidential details about what was happening.
Because she says, I wrote it down, complete honesty.
I know, but I'm saying she's saying it figuratively is what I'm saying.
Okay.
My impression is that she means, why didn't you tell me there was a scuffle and that there was some danger and that you and Bill are fine? Like that could have been something that she just wanted to hear right away when he was safe. Like, hey,
That's
I just wanted you to know we just had this situation, but it's over now and everything's fine.
I guess that's possible.
And if I was in a relationship with someone who was a police officer or in that type of dangerous situation daily, I would probably ask to hear that type of assurance right away. Imagine if she had heard it not with Jack.
Frightening, yes.
That's kind of what I took it to mean. But yes, she is very naive about a lot of things. And without giving spoilers, she does later in the season get much more concerned about his safety.
Yes.
So I feel like in this scene, after having seen the rest of the season, it does lead me to believe in this scene, she really was very naive about it and was just starting to realize how dangerous his job was. And from Jack's perspective,
he hated not telling her.
He's not telling her to spare her the worry, because he saw that in his mom with his dad being a Mountie. So I'm sure that has played into how he acts throughout a lot of season 2, in terms later season 2, like here forward, when there is that question of his safety and her concern for that.
Yeah,
I think he's trying to just spare her, and I think he does need to learn to open up and tell her things he can tell her without breaching confidentiality, without endangering a case or something. Like there is that respectful, like, we're going to both acknowledge that this is dangerous and there's some things I can't tell you, but I do need to let you in. And I mean, that's still a conversation they're having in season 5 for other reasons, but it's an ongoing thing that I think you have to have those conversations if you're in a relationship and one of you has something ongoing with danger or sensitive matters.
Right.
Is you need to be able to let them in to a certain level so that you have that connection, so that you're not bottling it up.
It's been 2 years since Rosemary, so he's getting back into the swing of things too. Exactly. So, and Rosemary's father was a Mountie, so this is,
I always forget that part.
I know, I do too. But Rosemary's father was a Mountie, and so we have to kind of remind ourselves that Jack is probably dealing with a woman who doesn't know the world for the first time in a long time, if not for the first time ever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so he's trying to find that line. And then he does that beautiful signature Jack hand holding up this, can you accept this? Which, in her Hamilton mode, she may not have taken it. But she looks at him, she trusts him, and she slips her dainty little fingers into his very, never mind, I'm going to stop there.
Okay.
She slips her dainty little hand into his big, capable, masculine hand, and they walk off together.
Oh, capable. That's what you were saying. Okay.
Absolutely.
I am glad that Jack said the line about, it's not that I don't want to tell you. I think that was important for him to say.
And important for her to hear.
I think she feels like it is, that he's not that he doesn't want to be close to her, but that he wants to have like that boundary, and she really doesn't want to have those walls between them.
Yeah.
So I think that was important to say, even though they both need to kind of work on realistic expectations of what can be shared. I think they both do. They need to meet in the middle more. And
then we take 2 steps forward, and now we're taking 3 steps back. We're not quite at square one, but
I don't know if It was 3 steps back, but
okay, it felt that way to me. But Elizabeth sees Charles off. He says he'll be back. Bill had to go and open his big mouth because Jack wouldn't.
Bill. I blame Bill for this.
I blame Bill. Jack would not have seen it if Bill hadn't called attention to it. But Jack got kissed on the cheek. Jack got kissed.
Why does he care? He met him in Hamilton. He knows who he is. He sees him. Oh, he's here. Okay. Why do you need to draw attention to that?
He's looking out for his boy. You know?
He is. He really is. Now, I could see him drawing attention to it when he sees the kiss, but he drew attention to it first when they were just standing there chatting and he's getting on a stagecoach and leaving. And so it just seemed a little like it just set up a little funny if there'd been the kiss and then he's like, hey, what is going on here?
Rosemary kissed Jack on the cheek when she left town.
Yeah.
And he knew that it didn't mean anything. Yeah. So why? I mean, I know it's his own.
I know why, but yeah, is why. Yeah.
It's his own personal insecurities of does she still have feelings for him? But really, think about it, dude. She is sending him off just like Rosemary was leaving you there when she went off. Mm-hmm. And she kissed him goodbye, just like Rosemary kissed you goodbye.
And not like Elizabeth kissed Jack goodbye in Hamilton, because that was a very different cheek kiss.
Oh yeah.
And I mean,
that was hand to head. That was a hand to head.
There was the hand piece of it. It was a lot slower. There was just more to it.
And there were more eyes.
Elizabeth kissing Charles goodbye was a very, very fast goodbye peck to a friend, and especially with how they carry themselves in Hamilton, that's just like what you do. I do have to, I mean, I'm sure from Charles' perspective, this was a little bit more of a like, oh, maybe there's still a chance she kissed my cheek.
You think
like,
so?
Very well could have been.
I thought that he was resigned to her sending him packing. He was going to come back and try again when he came back on business, but I thought that he was pretty not resigned, but
I mean, there could have been that hint of like, maybe there's still hope.
Maybe.
But from, I don't know. It's so hard, right? Because.
Well, and that's how they end the episode. So it's just.
I blame Bill.
Blame Bill.
Blame Bill.
That's our new hashtag. Blame Bill. All right, Hearties.
Why, Bill? Why?
Why, Bill? Why? All right, Hearties. Well, this has been an interesting conversation, to say the least. We hope that you were as entertained by it as we were, if not more so. And we will see you next time for more of When Calls the Heart Season 2. Bye, everybody.
Bye, Hearties.